All right, what's going on, big dogs? Now, it's been a few days since my last upload, and unfortunately, I am coming back to you guys with some really unfortunate news, actually. So, this headline reads Peanut the Squirrel, Instagram star, euthanized by New York State authorities. Now, this headline has been making some massive headlines all over the internet. It's been blowing up all over the internet with basically everyone other than a few losers, obviously, being really taken back and upset about this situation. So, just for a quick backstory, Peanut the squirrel is this guy's pet squirrel who he rescued about 7 years ago at this point, and then had actually tried to release Peanut. So, he rescued him, nurtured him back to health, tried to re-release him, but Peanut was still too injured to actually be released and survive on his own. So he decided to keep the little guy. And since he decided to keep the little guy, he then started making like short form videos on like Instagram and TikTok style videos of him and his pet squirrel just doing some cute things. You know, him getting greeted by the squirrel coming home from work, putting him in a little cowboy hat, all sorts of just cute little things with his pet. And obviously, these videos started to get a little bit of popularity and he started getting a little bit of a following. He then also rescued a raccoon recently who he named Fred, who was sadly also put down in this situation. Now, how did all of this happen and why did they do this to this guy's pets? So, while he was doing these videos, while he was posting his short form content with his pets, some poor lowlifes on the internet decided to anonymously report him for having wild animals as pets and that they could be rabies threats. So the authorities decided to come over to his house to take his pets, and while they were removing Peanut, he apparently bit an officer. So they then decided to test the animals for rabies. And for those of you who don't know this, the way you test for rabies, well, the animals need to be dead. So they put them both down to test them for rabies. It is a wild and crazy situation that honestly should never have happened. So, first off, I want to know who are the losers reporting this guy in the first place. Like, they are just simple, innocent videos about a guy with his pets. Like, if they weren't odd pets to have, like if they were dogs or cats, then no one would have said a damn thing. Like, if it was this guy and his dogs making cute videos, then no one would have batted an eye. But then the authorities decided to also come over, and they came over due to anonymous random calls that they had never gotten about this guy before. Like, it's not like he has a history of calls or anything like that, at least that we know of. It doesn't seem like this guy has any history of phone calls or reports about his pets being wild and rambunctious or causing any issues. And they try to remove these animals from their homes, and they are just surprised that they get bit. Like, it's just this crazy thing that would ever happen. How would you react if 1 minute you're like chilling with your bros making some videos, and then some random guys come in and start trying to just yoink you away? Like, you'd be just as aggressive. You'd be like, yo, what the fuck, guys? But then they use the stupidest reasoning for all of this, that they acted the way they did because it might be a rabies threat. Like, I don't know if you guys understand how rabies works, but animals that contract rabies die within like 2 weeks. They don't live very long. Like, getting rabies is a death sentence for animals. It is not a good thing for them to get. So, unless Peanut just like magically got bit right before the officers came in, I don't know how they would think he had rabies, because again, you don't just get rabies. You can't just get, you have to be physically bit by a carrier of rabies. There is no other way of contracting this disease. At least at the time of this recording, there is no other actual way to get rabies than being bit by an already carrier. So again, Peanut would have had to been bit right before, and then the officer would have to be like, oh shit, I guess we got to test him. Like, he just got bit. That would make sense if he had just gotten bit by another animal, but he didn't. He was at home peacefully, and you just decided to take him away. So yeah, he's going to be upset and bite. That's how animals are. They just had no reason to show up and then put this squirrel down, but they did it anyways. Like, again, they would have never reacted this fast to any call about a normal pet. Even if it was a legit complaint, they'd have brushed it off, and if you had said it was a dog or a cat, but since this guy had what you would call not a normal pet, they just decided to jump on this guy. Like, what I'm saying is, if you had made a phone call that somebody's dog was acting aggressive or acting weird, they'd probably just tell you to fuck off and relax. You know, oh, keep an eye on it, but whatever. That's all they tell you. But because this guy, you know, doesn't have the proper paperwork, which we'll talk about later, or because the pets are just a little strange, they decide that, oh, we got to teach this guy a lesson. That's basically how this comes off if you read into it. And now lastly, like I was talking about with the paperwork, I have been seeing quite a few comments basically saying that this guy deserved this because apparently, like I said, he didn't have the proper paperwork, since you can't just have wild animals as pets, at least in the state of New York. I don't know all the pet regulations for the entire United States, but at least in New York, the state of New York, you need to file for the proper paperwork and get approved. But it's still, with that, doesn't explain the death of these two animals. Like, they could have given this guy a heads up, to get the paperwork done. Like, the guy had already tried to release the squirrel once. He was planning on releasing the raccoon within a few months, by the way he made it sound. And he's obviously done a good job of taking care of the animals. So I don't know why they wouldn't have just given him a heads up, like, hey, we know you have these pets. Can you please get the proper paperwork so that we don't have to come and take them away? And then, that's normally how these processes work. It's like if you miss a fucking loan at the bank, they don't like, oh, that's one payment missed, we're going to come take all your shit now. No, you usually have to miss 4 or 5 payments in a row before they come and like take your car or take your house, right? It's not just a miss one thing and you're fucked. Like, that's normally how, life works, but they just did not do that in this situation. But not only all of that, but just to say that this guy deserves this to happen to him is just gross. No one deserves to have their pets just taken from their home for no good reason. It's not like these pets were in bad conditions. It's not like they were never fed or abused in some kind of way. He clearly cared like heavily for these animals. And it's really sad to see it happen. And again, I think if it was like a dog, like imagine somebody had a dog in their apartment and the apartment didn't allow dogs. The landlord wouldn't just show up and yoink the dog out and cause a freaking scene. He would probably give a warning. Then he'd probably give another warning. And then they might, start talking about eviction. Or if he did call the DEC like they did in this situation, because he thought the dog was aggressive or something, the DEC would probably wait months for this to happen if it was a normal animal. Like if it was a normal pet, I bet they would have waited months before they acted on this, or until something bad actually happened. Like if the dog actually bit somebody, then they would act. But since it was a weird case and they probably felt they could stick to this guy for not getting his paperwork, they decided to euthanize this guy's poor animals. So, but yeah, that's really all I got for you guys. So if you did enjoy, remember, please leave a like, comment, of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All of it absolutely means a ton. The channel's been growing a lot lately, guys, so I really appreciate that. Sorry for the video being a little bit more of a Debbie Downer, but it's been a hot commodity on the internet. I just kind of wanted to give my opinion on it. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for your support. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. And until the next video, guys, Godspeed.
I lost my best friend to 23. She left her body in Harvard above me.